Hello once again, and actually for a final time. As you can probably gather by looking at me, I've not recorded a video for a few weeks, and so my personal grooming habits have more or less gone to hell. Professor Drell isn't completely pleased about this, but I'm sort of curious to see how much gray I have in the beard, and the answer seems to be a whole lot. If this keeps on, I may be soon in some sort of Karl Marx look-alike contest. We'll see how that goes. But anyway, as you can see now, I'm in full summer mode. I've mostly submitted your grades and stuff, and so all the business of the semester is taken care of. And my main reason, actually, for recording a final video is just to thank you for being the people that you are, more or less. Um, you're very mature students. You didn't require any sort of babysitting, which is great. And there did seem to be a fair amount of genuine interest in the course, which makes all the difference in the world. I don't know to what extent you're aware of the circumstances under which I came to teach the course. I think some of you have a vague sense I haven't taught for a while, which is true. I hope it didn't show too much during the course of this semester, but I left teaching around 4 years ago to do some other things. And the reason why I came back as sort of a one-off, which is what this was because Professor Drell, my wife, had become chair of the department, and what she wanted to do was to retain some sort of continuity in having medieval offerings, because when you become chair, your teaching load is reduced and you can't offer as many courses, and she's been doing mostly service courses this year. And so she asked me if I would come back to do this one semester, and I said, well, I thought about it. Yeah, sure, I can do that as long as I can teach what I want. And so she agreed, and the medieval Young course was then put back up again for you guys to take. And anyway, since this may well be the last course I'll be teaching, at least for any considerable time, and it isn't really my intention to really do much more teaching again, with you people, you made it a very great last course to teach, and for that I just want to express my gratitude by and large. You made it a very fun and interesting experience, even under the peculiar circumstances under which we came to operate this semester. And you guys made it work, both when we were in the course before spring break and in this period since spring break when we haven't been in the course in class to see each other. And so beyond that, just a couple of final things I thought, since I'm here and I got a few minutes, and this is going to be just a very brief video that I hope all of you will see, I can make a few unsolicited suggestions about things to do while you continue to stay at home or whatever you're doing at this point. Obviously at this point it's the 7th of May. It's about, 10 till 10 in the morning. And in a lot of places, depending on what you are, there are easing restrictions, but I think, for most people, still a very wise thing to do the social distancing thing as much as possible and to be very careful because the virus is still out there. It's not going away. Actually, nationwide, it continues to spike up every day. But so you have some time on your hands, I would assume, and you're probably mostly at home. Probably the first unsolicited suggestion I'll make is that if you don't do this by habit already, you might consider the possibility of keeping a small journal while this is going on. Many of you are history majors, and even for those of you who are not, it is aware to everybody we're living through this great historical moment, and we're going to get to see eventually what comes out of the other side of it. No one knows for certain. Everybody has their ideas about it, but we're heading into sort of uncharted territory in a very real sense, and you might just want to record your thoughts and impressions of what's going on right now and what has been going on. If you haven't been keeping a journal, jump back a little bit. Do a narrative of what's happened to you since we went on to this endless spring break where we never returned to campus this semester. And it's always a good time or good thing to record your impressions occasionally about anything, because it gives you a chance to look back at your younger self as you move on. I keep journals intermittently. I've been a little busy recently, so I haven't made entries in anything for a while, but I have them from years back, and they're always kind of interesting to look back, because the person that you are when you're 17 is not the person you'll be at 21, is not the person that you'll be at 30 or 40 or 50 or approaching 60 like I am. You evolve. You learn more about the world. Your sensibilities evolve over time, and it's always good to look back to see the distance you've traversed. And so maybe think about it if you haven't done it. It's a neat habit to be into occasionally, and I'm probably going to pick it up again as time begins to permit it over the course of the summer. In terms of entertainment suggestions, I will put a few things out there. One thing my wife and I have watched over the last number of weekends, and we have set up basically movie slash binge TV nights on Friday, Saturday, sometimes Sunday evenings to sort of end the week in a nice way and keep sort of some sort of sense of structure in life that the weekend will seem like a weekend when you do that. We have watched the entirety of Foyle's War. And if you haven't seen that, I would certainly urge you to see it if you're with your parents or your siblings, if they're quasi-adult. This is a great thing for everybody to watch. And people, once they get started on it, they love it. It was given to Professor Drell and me as a gift by her parents a number of years ago, and I couldn't get Joanna to sit down and watch it, but I watched the first couple of seasons of it several years ago, and I stopped then with the expectation sometime when I could persuade Professor Drell to see the first episode, she would become hooked and we'd see the whole thing together. And that's what we did. She loved it. Everybody universally loves it. If you don't know what it's about, it's basically sort of a police procedural show set against the backdrop of the Second World War, from basically the phony war through the Blitz, through the conclusion of the war. And in the last couple of seasons, there are 8 sets of it, 3 or 4 episodes per set, goes into the early phases of the Cold War. The neat thing for a medieval England person, like all you people are, is that the first 6 seasons are set in the town of Hastings. And so you get to see these beautiful shots, because a lot of it was done on location there, of this place where the Great Battle occurred. And so it has that connection for you as well. And if you get a chance, I urge you to take a look at it. I think you'll love it. It's just one of the most fantastic things. Beyond that, well, actually, I haven't... this is something we haven't done yet, but it's something that we're going to experiment with this coming Friday, tomorrow. Years ago, back in the 70s, they made this series called Poldark, and there's also been a more recent version of it done. Back when I was in late high school, early college, I got to see the original Poldark and always liked it. It made a great impression on me at the time. It's kind of fun. It's a very sort of romantic thing set in Cornwall in the late 18th century, about a person who's returning from the American Revolution after the British have lost it and reestablishing his life there after having been away in America for a number of years. And anyway, I'm hoping I can get the first episode of the old Poldark, the seal of approval from Professor Drell. If that works on Friday, we'll have 29 episodes of that to watch. What else? Well, actually, in my own time in the evenings when we're not having, I always stop and watch something for an hour every evening. No matter what I'm doing, I'll stop work, I'll watch something and do a little work and go to bed. I've been watching season 1 of The Wire, which had always been recommended to me, and I recommend it to you now. If you like very realistic police drama, it's kind of astonishingly sophisticated and good. People have been recommending this to me for years, because for some reason people think I like things that are dark. I don't know why that is with my sunny disposition, but that's what people suggest. And so it was given to me as a gift by my wife a number of years ago, and now I'm getting around to it, and I strongly urge you to see it. The first season's fantastic. I just got to, I think, the 10th episode of a 13-episode season, and they just eliminated a character I really love, so I'll try to get over that, but I'll watch another episode tonight of that. Funny thing about that, since people recommend dark things to me, they've always recommended that I see Breaking Bad, which for some reason or another I have never seen, but that's probably the next thing on my list. I have the first season and a used copy of it sitting down in the basement. And this leads me to an amusing anecdote. Since I'm going to talk to you, I might as well entertain you just a little bit. After the 2016 election, the week after it, the presidential election, I had a couple of concerts that I attended. I go to the National occasionally to see shows. And the very day after the election, the show I went to see was Tegan and Sara, which is a lot of fun. I'm sure you all know who they are. And you probably say, what the hell is Ralph doing at that? But I think they're great. And actually, at one point, a number of years ago, Professor Lou and I went out to see a Tegan and Sara show, and she likes them as well. Then a couple days later, I went to see something that I really, really like, a personal thing with me. I'm a big fan of the Drive-By Truckers, this sort of alternative country band. And these are general admission shows, which I'm mourning not being able to see. I had a couple things this summer I had tickets to, and obviously those probably aren't going to go off now. But the point is, I like to get down close to the stage, and at the Truckers show, I was maybe 10 feet off the stage, and there's a fair amount of rowdiness and pushing and shoving and crap at these general admission shows. You know how that goes. And anyway, I'm enjoying myself, drinking my beer. I have a beer or two at a show. And this woman, I guess she's maybe in her late 40s, maybe early 50s. She was gloriously drunk. And she turned around to me and looked at me and she started saying, "You're Heisenberg." And I said, "Well, what?" And she said, "You're Heisenberg." And I said, "Do you mean Heisenberg as the physicist in the Heisenberg uncertainty principle?" And she said, "No, you're Heisenberg." And I had no idea what in the hell she was talking about. And she explained it to me eventually that she thought I was a dead ringer for this alter ego of the Bryan Cranston character in Breaking Bad. Walter White eventually becomes this character called Heisenberg. I had no idea what she was talking about. But apparently, a lot of people think, yeah, I kind of look like him. And I guess with the beard, I may look a little bit more like him now. And so, anyway, during the course of that concert, it was a long show. They went on for about 3 hours because they were in a foul mood. They didn't want to talk. They wanted to work out issues by playing, which was great, fantastic, almost spiritual show. But 4 or 5 times during the course of that, she would sort of skate past me very drunkenly and say Heisenberg. And then to confirm that sort of celebrity quasi lookalike thing, a number of times people subsequently have told me I look a lot like Bryan Cranston, and whatever, it may be true, it may be not true. I can't judge it. I was actually in the Black Hand, this coffee shop nearby a year or two ago, and a woman looked at me and she kept looking at me and she said, she practically asked me if I was Bryan Cranston. So for whatever that's worth, maybe if things don't work out, I can go on the celebrity lookalike circuit and make a few bucks that way. So anyway, but I'll watch Breaking Bad, and if I still have in contact with you for any reason, I'll give you a capsule review of that. The other thing I watched is something kind of loopy. I watched the first season of The Doom Patrol, which was kind of fun. One musical recommendation. There's a very great Americana singer named Lucinda Williams. She's in her, I think, mid to late 60s now. She just released, I've seen her live a time or two. She just released an album called Good Souls, Better Angels. If you get a chance, you might want to listen to it. It's dark, it's very sort of garage minimalist in terms of instrumentation, and it's kind of current. It sort of fits the moment, I think, for a lot of people. So you might want to take a listen to that if you get a chance. Also, in terms of the effect of coronavirus on our larger communities, particularly artistic communities, there is one person who died a few weeks ago of the coronavirus, a man named John Prine, who's another Americana sort of roots singer, perhaps the most famous of them. He's a very famous man who, sort of paradoxically, is not that well known. But if you get a chance, work back into the Prine catalog a little bit. I will tell you what my favorite John Prine song is. There are a lot of great ones, but probably my favorite of everything he's done is this thing called Paradise, which was on his very first album back eons ago, in the early 70s, actually. So he's been around for a long time, but he did finally, after surviving cancer twice, succumb to the coronavirus. And there's been a lot of mourning over that because he's apparently, in addition to being just a great musician, a brilliant guy, he was just a great person to everybody he encountered. And so take a look at that. Maybe expand your horizons a little bit if you don't know who John Prine is. Prine, John Prine. One final thing, and this is probably the other main reason why I'm contacting you. Because of the teaching and because of the coronavirus stuff, I have felt a great deal of empathy for you guys, particularly you guys who are graduating seniors. This is a tough circumstance to emerge into the world in. I feel a great sense of empathy for you. And as I was thinking about how jarring this has to be for you, I began to think about my own generation and my wife's generation. As you can probably guess, I am a very late boomer. I'm an old, basically. I was born in 1960, which places me, as demographers do this, in the boomer generation. Since I have a child bride, since Professor Durrell is younger than I am, she's a very early Gen Xer, although I must say, in terms of the stereotypes of part of that generation, she fits none of them. I don't even what generation you should place her in. Well, I'll leave that to your speculation. I have my own ideas, but she'd get really upset at me if I actually said it on video somewhere. But anyways, our generations, we've faced a few things, but nothing like this, nothing equivalent, nothing even close to what you guys are contending with now. And as I thought about people who've experienced very jarring events, the person, in my own acquaintance that came to mind almost immediately was actually my grandfather. He was born in 1915, and so as you can probably guess just by doing the dates, his formative experience was the Great Depression. And he did have a real Great Depression experience as far as I've been able to piece it together from the few things he told me and things that other people in my family have told me over the years. And thinking about you guys and thinking about him, what I eventually ended up doing was writing a bit of an opinion thing, and it's going to appear in Style Weekly. I submitted to them and they snapped it up immediately. They thought it fitted the time to some degree. And since you guys are obliquely mentioned in it, you're not mentioned by name, but you're mentioned in the sense that you brought me back to teaching for a semester. I think you might find it interesting to take a read in. It'll probably appear, it's either next week's Style or the week after. I'm not quite clear on that, but I think it's next week's. Once it appears, I'll send you a link so you can take a look at it. But that's something that's sort of coming down the pike that has some direct relation to you guys. And I will say this, that's, I hope you'll read it because, it's kind of a hopeful thing. It's like this video. If you didn't see any of the other videos, well, that's up to you guys. You decide what you want to do with class materials, but I would encourage you, I hope you see this one, since I'm saying goodbye and saying nice things to you and about you at the end. And I think the piece is, to a certain degree, kind of uplifting and encouraging. That, people go through these experiences, my grandfather did, and you can't help but be affected by it. That's going to happen. We're human beings and we're affected by these sort of crises that we go through. But in the case of a lot of people who experience these things, once they come out through the other side, it shapes them to a degree. I think a lot of cases it makes them better people in terms of their perception of themselves and the perception of the world around them and how they treat people around them. And that was certainly the experience with my grandfather. He could be a real crank, and he could be incredibly cantankerous and annoying and exasperating, but his values were, from my perspective, great. And I learned a lot from him. And in terms of the things that I took from him, not so much by what he would say, but the way he would conduct himself. I saw, as I've gotten older, I've come to realize that a lot of that flowed from that experience, from having to really scramble during the Great Depression. And it affected the way he treated people when he encountered them, and not just people in his family, but everybody he encountered. And so when it comes out, I hope you take a look at it. I'll send a link to you so you can see it. And that's pretty much it. Just wanted to say goodbye to you guys. I wish you all the luck in the world. If there's anything within my modest power to do to help you out, let me know. We're around. We're not going anywhere. And, when you find your way back to Richmond, we always love having students say hello to us. And you'll always be in contact with Professor Drell, since she's chair of the department. She's going to be sort of one of these anchors for you as you move into the world, those of you who are seniors. And those of you who are coming back, whenever that may be, we don't know what's going on with that. Obviously, feel free to get a hold of us. And so at this point, I'm going to sign off. And that's pretty much it. Hope to talk to you later at some point. And can't find the damn of what? Oh, there we go. Stop this now. So take care. Goodbye.